Thanks for having me over. So my name is Henric. I'm a Finnish guy, but living currently in Berlin, working for a company called World of Gaming, Wooga. And like I think Taras there explained, we're number 3 in DAU and MAU currently on Facebook. And today I'm going to be here and talking about killer game whose case Magic Land. So Magic Land is the newest game released by Wooga in August the 15th. We launched it in Cologne in the Game Developers Conference there. So this is a little bit, I'm going to start off by briefly touching Wooga. So currently we're a little bit over 100 people in Berlin and in Germany. We have a funding of $31 million from various investors, over 20 different nationalities. We have a really multinational cultural office. Everybody loves the office who steps into the office. It's really cool. We have currently 6 games on Facebook. You can see the games down below. Probably our most famous games are Bubble Island, Diamond Dash, and Monster World. All of those in top 20 on Facebook, and I have like Diamond Dash and Bubble Island even over 2 million DAU, which is very, very rare on Facebook and very tough to achieve. So we're very happy about that. This is me. A nice little picture. So currently, what I'm working mostly on is Magic Land and Magic Land Island, which is an HTML5 version. Really impressive stuff. We haven't yet released it, but it's looking really, really good, and we're releasing it in the weeks to come. I'm also active on a blog I created called GamesChangeMyLife.com. So I'm talking a lot about social games design, and stuff like that. It has been pretty well received. Before I worked at the same company as Aki here, Digital Chocolate. I was there 4 years. Did a lot of stuff, mobile games, casual downloadable games, XBLA games, and such. But what I'm most famous for is Millionaire Cities. I was the original PM for that, creating a concept and developing it and post-iterating it. And that actually was last year the biggest non-Zynga game with virtual items. I had at its peak 2.95 million DAU. A couple other games, MMA Pro Fighter, and where I put Tower Blocks there, even though currently it doesn't have a lot of users, but it was very early. So 2007, October, Tower Blocks was the 8th biggest game on Facebook and had 140,000 DAU, which was back then really, really a lot. And it was one of the first real games on Facebook. So 2007 there was a lot of Jetman and these kind of games and Fight Club, which were text-based and not really games as such. But a really good experience. So today's agenda is twofold. I'm going to talk a little bit about theory and then go into practice. And the practice part is then reflecting on Magic Land. So that should give you a nice picture of what we've been doing with that. So we're going to start off by talking about what is a game loop. So Aki briefly touched it before. And I define it simply with these words, that it's the the chain of actions you do over and over again in the game. And that's actually is the game. So it's supposed to be fun and all this other stuff that gets you hooked to the game. It's also what is usually in game loops is that it generates soft currency, or they're in-game money. So some people call it the primary grind, some call it the game loop, different core loop, a lot of names for this thing, but it's the core and the heart of any social game. Here's a picture of Fish Wheel. The reason why I put Fish Wheel here is that when I was doing background research for Millionaire City, when I was creating that, I was fascinated by Fish Wheel because it has such a simple core game loop. So I think it's very good for illustrative purposes here to take a look at it so you understand what it is. So it's really very, very simple. So you buy a fish, you grow it, and then you sell it. So this is very, very simple, and in this case it actually proved to be too simple. I'm actually going to take a look at it later why. But it's a very good illustrative example of what is a game loop. Then this is Millionaire City. I later branded it Wooga, wrote it with the road as a small joke. But it's developed by Digital Chocolate, and there the core game loop is a little bit more complicated. It's one more step. So basically buying a plot, buying and placing an item, and when you're doing this, there's actually a small extra thing on that I'm going to talk later about. Then you're waiting for the income, and then you collect the income. So it's also very simple, and this proved to be very understandable for people and very rewarding as well. Obviously this is connected to real money, or feeling of making real money, so it makes it even more powerful than having just fish that you sell. So this is really tapping into real estate business and this kind of money-making type of games. Now I'm going into a couple of mistakes people can and have done in making this game loop, the core game loop of the game. So one of the most decisive mistakes you can do is to have an object that you're interacting with in the core game loop and it disappears at the end. So here are actually examples of 3 of those games. So fish will get rid of sell the fish that you have grown emotional attached to. That's a big no-no. Same thing for Happy Hospital by Wooga, where I currently work. So we had a new game which has had medium success, not going over 1 million DAU, we're still happy with it. But there also we see a problem that these small characters you have in the game, when in the end, when you treat them, they disappear from the screen and users don't like that. So that's definitely not something you should do. Another game, really great game, Safari Kingdom, nice graphics, same problem. So the animal disappears again. Then another thing is that if you have a core game loop in your game and it doesn't actually generate the core in-game money, so users start to feel like, oh, I should do something else in the game than what you intended. So people are very money-centric in world, I understand why. And also in these games, they want to accumulate of the in-game currency. So if you have a core game loop that doesn't generate in-game currency, then most likely the user is going to focus on something else which generates the currency, and then you have like a little bit of a problem. Other problems you can have is that it's too complex or imaginary, so people don't relate to it, they don't know what to do naturally. Another mistake also often done by game developers who want to cram a lot of animation, which is good, but you can also go overboard. So if you have too many animations in the core game loop, it makes it kind of like unresponsive and takes too much time. So it will be fun a couple of times, but not in the long run. So people start getting bored of the nice animations after a week. And then if there's no way to skip them, then you might have a problem. Then another problem which is pretty common is to have several game loops. So you maybe start off building a game, have a simple core game loop, and then you say like, okay, this didn't work, let's put another one. Let's put another one. Exactly what happened in Fishville. So they later introduced a fighting game with the fishes there inside, and it didn't really move the needle for them. And there's other examples of this as well. One example could also be too simple. So if the bar has raised on Facebook what kind of games. The consumers are more and more demanding and want to have more and more interaction and fun with the game. And if you have too simple, it might not work. What is a good game loop? A couple of pictures of something growing in a restaurant. So it's a lot easier always if you take a core game loop which is connected to real life. So is it restaurant? Is it farming? Is it buying a house, selling a house? Is it a shopping mall? You know what's involved in a shopping mall. Taking care of kids, childcare game could also be good. Nobody has actually done it well yet on Facebook. Fun one time, but also 1,000 times. So sometimes you check it out, this is fun, but how does it feel in the long run if you're playing it for weeks and weeks or even months, like social games ought to be played. Then another one is that you have too many steps. So it's very difficult for grasp for the casual mom or more casual player on Facebook. If you have too many steps and you have to go to different screens back and forth. It has to be really simple. And each click and each interaction with the game is supposed to feel rewarding. That's why a lot of Zynga games, anything you click, you get an XP star. So, even though you click badly, the still game and rewards you somehow. But if you click right, you will get more of the good thing. Then another thing which is very important currently in the way how Facebook works currently and the channels is the requests. So requests are very important in Facebook currently, and one of your primary ways to re-engage users and improve your retention. Obviously they also work as a viral channel. So tie the core game loop into the core game loop requests somehow. So you're needing some items to finish something, or you're having to ask for something from your friends, so you need a building permit for something or stuff. And this proves to be very, very, very good. Then a couple of things I'm going to talk next about is smart depth. So you're supposed to be able to put smart depth on the game, and also closure. I'm going to go into those later. Smart depth is a layer on top of the core game loop that adds a lot more game. And here I have illustrated a bit from Millionaire City. So when you're placing a house, it actually matters where you place it. If you place it wisely, you get more games than placing it badly. This is actually sounds simple and everybody understands it. Very few games on Facebook actually have it. Here are a couple of examples. This is Millionaire City, item interdependency. If you have a flower shop, people living around it, you gain more money. Another one is Cafe World. This is also a really good sign. If people start putting YouTube videos or pictures of how they have placed something, then you know you have smart depth. So they are here showing different ways to optimize the flow of customers, smart depth. And then this is from Monster World, a Wooga game. So there's timing, so you have to a little bit time and think what you're going to produce and you're going to maximize your profit. Another example is smart. Here is some Magic Land, so in case you haven't played it. So this is a magical kingdom you're having, and you have a castle, and the castle has an area effect, so if you place stuff around it, you will do more money than placing arbitrarily around the map. Another example from Magic Land is there's a fog that you're unfogging with your character each time using energy, and if you do it in a more smart way, you can actually save some time and save some energy and advance in the gameplay quicker. There's also a feature called the outpost, we're calling. You can rescue and discover under the fog. You have a nice thing like this. And you can utilize them because they also have an area of effect around them, but you don't have to. That's the beauty of smartness. So people who don't notice it and don't care about it don't have to, but if you do it, you get more benefits. Closure is something I haven't invented myself. I found it on a blog by Brenda Rewaith from Loot Drop. And she defines closure as kind of the ability for a player to leave the game in a state where they feel that they have done everything in the game and they can come back to the game and find a lot of rewards. And they also should know the punishment rules in the game. So if you don't come back in 3 hours, there's something withered away or something. Good closure, city build. So you come back to the game, there's a lot of things to click, there's always rewards, there's some things that spoil. There, for example, the farming, but not everything spoils. This is a nice image from Zombie Lane, which by the way is one of my favorite games for this year, but this displays, this is also a more hardcore game, kind of like the opposite. So you come back to the game, there's not much anything kind of clicking, any kind of rewards waiting, but there's nice zombies waiting. But they're not as obvious as in Citadel. So this kind of shows the kind of different aspects of how you can go. And I would define this as bad closure because there's kind of like not anything obvious to click and any rewards waiting. Obviously, clicking the zombies and killing them is then later rewarding. This is closure from Magic Land. You come back to the game, you have a lot of stuff blinking, rewards waiting for click and collect, and maybe I've had focus groups in this game and user tests, people really laugh when they come back and click on this. So this is a very good kind of like indication of that you're doing something right. Other things bring closure is to have the timers and bars so the customer knows when something is supposed to happen. People also generally like progress bars. So they just eagerly stand and stare at the progress bar and waiting for it to complete because it gives them satisfaction. Blinking icons, another thing. So how do you get loop closure? So you should have all actions done and it rewards waiting. You can achieve it with variable and fixed timers, so you have houses with different timers. Energy refills, you have a big counter and you can see when energy is going to be full. And then you have to also communicate to the customer what are the punishment rules, so that he comes back, when he comes back the next day, he knows that everything should be okay, but if he comes back in 2 days, there will be something kind of like lost. One other really important thing is that the game should be in the same state when you come back to the game as you left it. So you shouldn't have a different pop-ups or different screens or different part of the world. You should leave the game and come back to the game to the same screen. And the one question somebody asked is, can you change the game loop after launch? And the big answer to this is no. So you can do it if you have a closed beta, but if you put out the game and have 100,000 DAU and start changing the core game loop, not only going to spend on 1 month trying to change it and trying to fix it, but you're going to also lose the best customers. The best customers find the game always the first, and they're going to be really mad. Some companies have tried to do it. The mighty Zynga did it with Roller Coaster Kingdom. So they had the first simple rule, and then they added later appointment gaming, didn't work out. Nightclub City by Booyah later added energy to the core game loop, didn't work out. There's a lot of examples of this. Also Happy Hospital from Wooga, we tried to change the game loop of Happy Hospital, and we didn't succeed. We couldn't really affect the game after launch anymore. So then you might kind of do a checklist of all this stuff for your game and think that, hey, now I have a great game. But this is really not how you make the games. Like a little bit like Aki was talking a little earlier. So this is not really, it's good to check, you know, I have thought about this, but this is not how you make games. One kind of like my #1 rule I always try to keep in mind is being humble. It's very difficult space. It's very early. You know, the games have been around for 3-4 years, so we don't know everything yet. We just have scratched the surface. So nobody can claim that they know the secret sauce for making these games. So you have to be very humble and very open for any new ideas, and always criticize every single aspect of your game that you're doing. now we're going to go to kind of the practice part of Magic Land. So I hope if you haven't played it, give it a try. How it got started was last a year ago in September. So I did this board game. I actually have also a drawing in my notebook. I started thinking of I wanted to make a casual city builder set in medieval times. A little bit inspired by Shrek the movie, which is a medieval movie, but in the same time it's for the whole family. So usually when game developers start doing medieval, it goes to World of Warcraft or very hardcore games. So I took a look at the market and saw that there's a demand for medieval casual games, but nobody's catering it well on Facebook. Then later I did kind of like the first part of the game loop for the game. Back then it was called actually Happy Kingdom, and it was very much the same as in Millionaire City, so kind of like a core that really works. Also the same that the city village is mostly using. And you're buying a house or like a medieval house, placing it, waiting and collecting income. Later we decided to add some kind of strategy to it or adventure, and we did a kind of like secondary core loop that feeds the core game loop feeds the secondary core loop. And the secondary core loop, or extended loop, as I call it, is an adventure game. So you're running around the adventure, uncovering stuff under the fog, and this gives you more items that you need for the houses, but also more space that you need for the building even more houses and generating more money. So the two game loops, they connect to each other. This is a picture of what you can also do once you have your game loop. You can try it out with a Lego prototype. So this is something I really encourage, because Lego prototyping is really good, because it has a grid already. So Legos force you to think about grids, and social games with items are really about grids. So each game has a tile-based set, 60 by 60, 80 by 80, 90 by 90. Magic Land has 80 by 80, and this forces you a little bit to plan how big the items are and how you play the game. And then here you can play the game so that one of your friends is a colleague is a game master, keeps the clock, and then he gives you missions to do, and you can see how the game plays. Another thing which I encourage doing is a concept shot. So at this point when we did this, nobody has programmed a single line of code. This was done based on the board prototype I had made. So here we had one artist who, with the help of me and some other product managers, started, painting how the game could look like. What you could do from this also is a more extended version that you think about how the game will look in 6 months. So how does your map, how does it fill up with items? Is it enough? Is it too little? And so forth. Because sometimes it works in small scale, but it won't work in big scale. Then the most important milestone, I think, in any production is the first playable. So now you have had typically a team of programmers, maybe 2 or 3 programming for max 2 months. And why I say max 2 months is that if you go for a longer period of time, you easily go into this trap, like let's add this feature, let's add this feature. In the first playable, in project I done that had success, first playable has the core loop, nothing else. So here the core loop is just, you have a castle you can do anything with, you can place houses and farms and wait for them to yield. And also have a road that you have to connect. That's it, there's nothing more. And for this first playable, there was only 4 houses and a couple of farms. So I also want to stress that don't produce too much assets in the beginning before you know if the game is fun. Because otherwise you go into this trap that, hey, it's not fun now, but that's because we have 4 houses. It should be fun with 4 houses. It will be even more fun when you have 20 houses. So don't produce more houses or more assets just to think it will make it fun by itself. Then another thing which I think we're at Wooga very good at is user testing. So each game production, regardless of how rockstar the team is, they should invite people over from outside the company, not family or friends. Those are good, but their opinions are always a little bit biased. So please get people from university or better yet, like find people of your demographic for your game. So for Wooga games, we have a lot of women over 35 playing. So we have a lot of then user tests with those coming to the office and trying out games and seeing, iterating each week with user tests, what works, what doesn't. It can be a stupid thing with a button and it's in the wrong place, it can make or break your game. Another thing which went really well and I highly encourage is a closed beta. So after you're developing for 6 months, 7 months, do a closed beta. What we did is we took out the Wooga branding, we disabled the virality of the game, we pushed it out in Australia for 5,000 users. Nobody knew about it, except the Australians who played the game. And we could see and measure the results of it. We could see 1-day retention, 7-day retention, we could see what they were doing in the game and stuff like that. And with this, we could iterate the game with real data for 2 months. Then we launched the game on 15th August at the GDC in Cologne, in Germany. And now I'm actually going to go to the really juicy parts. What have we been doing after the launch? So I call it post-launch iteration. So this is when the real development really starts. It's not like we put off half of the team. This is when we start increasing the team size. So actually after we have launched the game, we increase the team size. So where are we currently? So this is the first 5 weeks of the game. These are hundreds of thousands of DAUs on the side. We're roughly between 350 and 400,000 DAU. It seems to kind of be a good start. Obviously, we're Wooga, we're very, very ambitious. We want to create games which are over 1 million DAU, 2 million DAU. So we're still in the iteration phase on this, so we're not pushing it. Obviously, we have a lot of traffic, so we could push it over 1 million almost in a couple of days. But we're not doing it. Why are not we doing it? Because we still have some problems with retention, actually. And I'm going to go into those next. So anyone who's familiar with these numbers, DAU out of MAU, if you're over 15, we have a really good game, really good game. Over 20, you have a really good hit at your hands. Being over 10, around 10, is an okay start. It's not great, but it's not super bad either. Being below 8, starts to be a kind of failure game, and that will be impossible to grow. So something which is still affecting these numbers is that we're pushing it in and trying it out only in countries where we have bad users, so to say. Because we don't want to, we have problems with it, so we don't want to push it with our best customers. Our best customers are from Germany, France, and USA. So we're not pushing it there at all. We're currently only trying it out with a certain amount of people a day in some countries which are not doing so well for us. So, problems identified, and these are real numbers. So we noticed when we started looking at the real numbers with hundreds of thousands of DAUs that we had too many users dropping out even before seeing the game. So these percentages display amount of people who have allowed the app and have gotten the flash loaded, 88.1. So these numbers are typically even roughly 10% higher than these. Another problems identified is that the tutorial completion rate was too low. So 65% is way too low out of those who allowed the game. Other things worth noticing is that too many are dropping out between level 2 and level 3, even though it's 10% here, or 10 percentage points, which is obviously a lot more, are dropping between level 2 and level 3. And between level 3 and level 4, there's 20%. So this is definitely not acceptable. So what's going on here? So this is what the beauty of data. The data will show you that there's a problem, but very seldom it will suggest why you have a problem. So how do you get into the why you have a problem? So that's user testing, really. So this is the one service I personally really love, and this is a must for everybody. There's other services like this. I'm not getting paid from them. But I really like this one because it's really easy to set up. So I set up many user testings on this, and we found a level up problem because the players were playing a lot more slow on these sites than when we get people to the office. So because of this, we had a problem with the energy, or the level ups that made the energy to refill. And because of this, some players got stuck on level 3. And they had to wait 15 minutes to be able to play again. And this is way too early, and that's why we had such a big drop-off between 3 and 4. Also, other things found out in usability, which seems kind of like obvious. So we have a mission called cut down trees. So here you can see this was typically what users did. They cut down the trees, but they didn't remove the end of it. This made the mission not complete, and they got stuck. So we changed the final state of the tree to be this instead of this. Suddenly, they also cut down this, and that solved the problem. So all kind of these small things, they add up. So there were tens of these. Other thing which we noticed is that the objective and the story of the game was a little bit obscure for the people, so we added a banner shown to new users. What is the objective? We rewrote the tutorial and all the pop-ups in the tutorial and the missions coming after the tutorial in the first session. And we also made this, call them story goals, like branches that you get into a nice story that continues with numbers. This really worked. Then we also reshuffled the goals. We took a look at the data, which goals get completed, which not. Some we deleted, some we altered, some we moved later, some we started teaching in the tutorial. And we extended the tutorial. So one of the coolest things in the game is actually uncovering stuff under the fog, but people didn't notice it. So we added arrows on when you actually first see this. We added arrows, even this comes in late game after playing for 25 minutes. We added arrows that shows you where you're supposed to interact now. Then we did a lot of balancing. So we readjust the progression speed of the game. We readjust the level ups and the energy that you have. We adjust the resources and rewards you get in the game. And all these really add up. So we had these main 4 problems, which I showed you by numbers. So first we got the before game drop-off solved. That was mainly a technical problem and a flow problem. We got the tutorial completion rate solved with white spots, arrows. We redesigned it a little bit. We got the drop-off solved between level 2 and level 3. And the drop-off at level 3 to level 4, which was, I mentioned this, the players were playing a lot slower than we anticipated. And because of that, they didn't run out of energy. We got all of these solved, and the results was really big. So obviously, one-day retention, it doesn't sound much like improving from 3 to 4 percentage points. But here, like Aki also mentioned before, is kind of this 40-20-10 rule, that you should get over 40% of your users back after the first day. So out of everybody who allowed that, 40% of those should come back the next game. And if you increase this one-day retention by 3 to 4%, it's huge. It's a huge difference. That's really a difference between a successful game and not a successful game. Other thing which is even more important than in the long run is longer-term retention. So 7-day retention also improved by 3 to 5 percentage points, which is a huge, huge increase. Now we don't yet have data for 30-day retention rates because we haven't had the fixes out for 30 days, but they look very promising, obviously, based on these going up so much. And then, obviously, we're still early phase of the game, so the work continues. And here, I think Wooga is really one of the best companies I've seen in my career. We really have a culture of iterating, and not just iterating more and more features, but iterating and validating in between. So everything we do is A/B tested. Everything. We can have 9 A/B tests a week running for the game. 4, 5, 6 different types of buttons, a different amount of energy, different amount of rewards, and we really, really, really put a lot of effort into this. It's more validation and iteration, always over and over and over, and this continues. And by doing this, you can achieve results like this. So this is a Monster World, which is our biggest virtual items game currently. Has over 1.6 million DAU. It's the biggest farming game after Farmville on Facebook. It's huge, obviously, for us. So this is the first 5 weeks of after launch of both games. So here you can see that actually Magic Land is doing pretty nicely compared to that. So also in Monster World we had problems. We were iterating it week by week. We didn't have missions when we launched it. We added missions, doing A/B test after A/B test, and it really pays off. So to my knowledge, actually Wooga is the only company that manages to have all-time highs for the games years after, not years, but months after launch. Usually these games peak at 4-5 months after launch. Wooga games seem to peak after 1 year, 1.5 years, because we continuously improve the game, and we don't kind of like give up on a game and leave it to 3 guys. We increase the team size, we switch if something doesn't work, we A/B test, we continue and continue and continue, and with this you can get results. I could show a similar graph from Bubble Island, another game of ours. So it had a small dip, but we managed to increase that as well. So early for Magic Land, it looks promising. We have fixed some of the main issues, and once we start promoting it, it will grow really quickly. Then this is going towards the end of my presentation, when I have some room for questions. So if you haven't tried out Magic Land, you can find it on Facebook, going to the top search. And obviously, if you want to learn the most, come and join us at the Wooga office. So we're currently, recruiting 2 per week. One of the fastest growing technology companies in Europe. We have an amazing office. I can actually show this is our floor, and we are actually also getting now the rooftop terrace on the second floor from the same building. If you're interested in also more, stuff what I say, if you think it makes sense, you can check out my blog at Games Change on Life. I will also post these slides there, or add me on Twitter. Thank you. Any questions?
Hi. You showed a slide with goals and a story on Magic Land. And it looked like you have a final goal in the game. There was like defeat the bad guy and get married, something else. So can you talk about these models of having a final goal in a game and the game was kind of open-ended without final goal?
That's a really good question. Thank you for that. So obviously these virtual items games usually are never ending. So it's a bit like also Anki said about winter is coming. So we want to have something which kind of gives you a picture of why am I playing this game. Millionaire City, very simple. I want to become a millionaire. In Cityville, I want to become mayor. So what was this thing in our game that we wanted to be this kind of like one thing that the player, when he starts playing, he understands what does he want to achieve by playing for 2 months. And we identified it to be king. And when we did user testing, there were different answers. There were somebody building a big city, somebody going on an adventure, but nobody said that he was king. So that's why we added the bar and also changed all the texts. Then to your question, I think it's very important to have a long-term goal, but also like mid-term and short-term goals. So long-term goal is becoming king. The mid-term goal is actually not here, but it's more here. It's rescuing the kids of the king. The short-term goal is unlocking the next area or getting this really high-priced house. So you have to have goals for short-term, which is 1 day, mid-term, 2-3 days. Even mid-term can be just getting the player back, and the player comes back and he achieves that goal, so it makes him feel good. And the long-term must then be kind of like in months. Obviously, we will be continuously putting more content to this game. So once you do become king, they're going to be a next goal. Let's see what that is. I don't even know that yet myself.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. Firstly, my question is the next. I saw the last month that you were actually really actively hiring in Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And you were looking for mobile developers and product managers. So actually, I would like to know, do you actually plan to make your games cross-platform, like from Facebook available now on all, like iOS, Android, etc. Or you actually guys plan to make absolutely new products available on mobile?
Yeah. So. Very good question as well, thanks for that. I think there's two folders. So we have announced that we're doing Magic Land Ireland, which is an HTML5 game, so you can play it on any device which has a browser. We also announced that we're doing Diamond Dash, one of our top properties on Facebook, as a native app for iPhone and iPad, and that looks amazing. By the way, I play the game a lot. So when it comes to Monster World and kind of like cross-platform games in the sense that they're connected, it's very difficult to achieve that you have exactly the same game on the desktop and exactly the same game on a small screen like iPhone. If you take a look at these games, usually they are in top 10 on iPhone and top 10 on Facebook. The balancing is different. Times you get money are different because the way you play on these two devices is different. And on a mobile phone you're playing on a bus stop or on a small break, whereas on desktop you're playing by your work in a different path. So you can't have exactly the same values. Obviously, we're experimenting with that, but let's see how it goes. But we are currently moving also into mobile, like I said. So I think one of the most exciting projects we have is the HTML5 game, and it's looking very, very good currently. I'm very looking forward to launch it actually. Thank you.